Hey everybody, this is Rabid. Welcome to the channel. And I saw this old Department of Defense footage a long time ago, and then when the Chaparral was added to War Thunder, I knew I had to do this video. So please enjoy, and I hope you have fun.
A volcano spews out its awesome wave of destruction. The ancient Romans thought this was the angry work of a powerful god. A god they called Vulcan. 2,000 years later, Vulcan has taken on a new meaning as the name of a destructive rapid-fire air defense weapon. The Roadrunner is a lethal bird that darts across the landscape at a speedy 15 miles an hour. He's also known by another name, Chaparral. Now, the bird has lent his name to a missile system, the lethal, highly mobile Chaparral. Chaparral, Vulcan, a powerful new pair for battlefield air defense. Low-altitude enemy aircraft, bombing, strafing, and destroying. Just a few years ago, our frontline forces were highly vulnerable to air attack from very low altitude. The only defensive weapon in the arsenal was the conventional machine gun. Under development were two new weapons, Red Eye and Mauler, but they weren't due to be fielded for several years. To fill this gap, the Chaparral Vulcan project was launched in 1965. Within a year, early versions of the weapons had been developed to meet the original project guidelines. Those guidelines called for the development of interim weapons until Mauler became available. It was to be a quick, inexpensive job using off-the-shelf hardware, such as an M113 as the vehicle. The weapons were to be highly mobile, capable of defending against low-altitude air attacks, and designed for use in the European theater. Late 1967. The first production model of Vulcan was already undergoing its acceptance tests at Aberdeen Proving Ground. By this time, many things had changed. Mauler had been canceled, giving new importance to Chaparral Vulcan. The interim designation had been dropped, with the weapons now being marked to become a regular part of the inventory. That meant they would have to be able to withstand the environmental conditions anywhere in the world, instead of just in Europe. And it meant the need for building in reliability and maintainability. One thing, though, hadn't changed: the requirement for getting the job done in the shortest possible time. For mobility, Vulcan is mounted on a full-tracked vehicle, designated the XM741, that can take most any kind of cross-country terrain. The aluminum body is thick enough to provide light armor protection for the crew. Under the armor is a diesel engine with automatic transmission that'll move Vulcan along at up to 40 miles an hour, with a cruising range of 300 miles. The vehicle has a swimming capability with a speed in the water of 3 miles an hour. Design objectives for the turret call for it to slew full circle in 6 seconds. Elevation coverage is -5 to +80 degrees. The gunner's station has been designed to keep his control tasks to a minimum. His fire control is based on a newly improved lead computing site using data from a range-only radar. The ammo feed system is linkless and stores 1,000 usable rounds. It can be quickly reloaded at any time in the cycle. Here's the extra ammo, 800 rounds. The high-explosive XM246 projectiles have a self-destruct feature to prevent live shells from landing on friendly troops. Also available is the M56 for use against ground targets. It can also be used against aircraft. The M220 tracer round is provided for training. Part of the system, the gun itself, was adapted from an existing aircraft-mounted weapon. It's an electrically driven 20mm cannon with 6 rotating barrels on the Gatling gun principle. The other half of the twosome, Chaparral, is a powerful, effective weapons system based around a combat-proven missile. It travels on a modification of the M548 cargo carrier, redesignated the XM730. Like the Vulcan, it'll hit speeds up to 40 and cruise for 300 miles before refueling. Chaparral's swim kit can be installed in half an hour. Like the Vulcan, it too is capable of swimming inland bodies of water. In preparation for firing, the mount raises 2 feet. Turret slew in azimuth is unlimited. In elevation, the launch rails travel from minus 15 degrees to straight up. The Chaparral missile, adapted from the Navy's Sidewinder 1C, is just under 10 feet long and weighs slightly less than 200 pounds. 4 missiles are carried on the launch rails while traveling. Additional missiles are stowed in the vehicle. The entire weapon, like the Vulcan, can be transported by cargo aircraft. As shown in this test, engaging a target is simple and quick. The gunner requires the target visually and slews to put his gun sight on it. He gets an audio signal that tells him when the missile has acquired. The missile is guided by an infrared seeker that tracks on a heat source.
If you want to find the full video of that, you can just do a quick Google search for Chaparral Vulcan. There's a few different channels that are hosting it. And overall, the longer video does go into a lot of like really detailed stuff, like the radar sets they use, how they integrate with other units, etc., etc., etc. Interesting, but not really relevant to the game of War Thunder. And obviously that leads us into the inaccuracies with both of these vehicles in the game of War Thunder. So let's get started. And the first one is obviously the uniforms. In War Thunder, they're still using World War II tanker uniforms because Gaijin haven't added a model for more modern US uniforms. Obviously something like Woodland would go a long way, but you get what you get, right? Well, it's Gaijin just adds new uniforms whenever they feel like it, so there's nothing you can do about that. One of the obvious inaccuracies is actually the inability of the M163 Vulcan to swim in War Thunder. Now, the M163 Vulcan has those 2 bulges on the sides. Those are actually flotation sponsons, and the splash guard has the extra feature on top that also adds additional buoyancy. So those parts of the kit are specifically there to allow it to swim. So why they would model parts of the kit that allow it to swim and then not have it swim is just very weird to me. I always found it odd that the Vulcan couldn't swim because it doesn't take a lot of preparation like some of the other vehicles do. So that just seems like an odd decision on Gaijin's part. And of course, the other obvious inaccuracy with the Vulcan is that in real life, the Vulcan can actually climb hills, and it really can't in War Thunder, so it's kind of an odd one. I think it's due to the global traction nerfs they use to try to get people and keep people from getting into out of bounds spots, but it still makes the M113s handle like kind of garbage in game. The Chaparral, though, the Chaparral has a lot of inaccuracies in War Thunder, but strangely all of them are to its benefit. So the actual reload for the Chaparral in the video, at least, is listed as about 5 minutes. In-game, it's like 30 seconds, so it's about 10 times faster. Because if you actually watch the video, what they're doing is they're unloading the missile bodies, putting them on the rails, and then manually assembling the fins. So obviously that's a pretty time-consuming process. But if you did a 5-minute reload in War Thunder, that's essentially useless. You might as well J out of the vehicle because you're never doing that over the course of an average game. So that's obviously done for playability. They also mention, helpfully, that the actual main firing unit has to extend 2 feet in order to get into a firing position, and in War Thunder it just stays up all the time, so you don't have to like stop and wait for it to raise to a firing position. So again, it's kind of an inaccuracy in your favor because you wouldn't really drive with it all the way up. Additionally, the gunner is in there all the time, so you don't have to wait for the gunner to hop out of the main section and then jump into the firing module to man it. So you can actually shoot the Chaparral on the move in War Thunder, and you could in real life, but realistically you wouldn't because the system isn't designed for it. Which does raise the whole historical inaccuracy thing of, just because a vehicle can technically do it, should it be able to do it in the game? The Bradley, for example, specifically stows its launcher if it goes over a certain speed. It can technically keep its launcher out while going over that speed. It's just not generally a good idea to do so, and the launcher's not designed for it. So the Bradley is kind of hurt by this selective realism, whereas the Chaparral actually benefits from it. And my biggest issue is stuff like this is it's not exactly consistent across vehicles, and you'll see examples of it kind of going both ways. The Chaparral also can technically swim, and all you really need to do to swim is put a liner outside the bed so that it gives it some buoyancy, which wouldn't be that difficult to just model in game, especially as they keep the platform up all the time. I mean, it's not like the biggest deal in the world. It doesn't hurt the vehicle that it can't swim. Also, I noticed that because of the Chaparral's incredibly high elevation speeds, that the Chaparral is essentially stabilized. It's not actually stabilized, but it will elevate to get back on target so fast that it kind of is. I'm not really sure if that's supposed to be correct because obviously it's not designed to be fired while moving, but it is what it is. The Chaparral in-game is a lot more usable than it would be if it were historically accurate because you can shoot it while moving, you can fire multiple targets in rapid succession, your reload is actually not that bad considering you get 4 Sidewinders and you carry a total of 12. Overall, I think the Chaparral is pretty usable, especially against jets, but less so against helicopters. The Vulcan, on the other hand, is not really great against anything. The radar doesn't like to lock onto things if there's anything tall in your field of vision. The gun itself fires a solid stream of bullets, but realistically with aircraft, you either want a spread or a proximity fuse. You don't have to hit them directly. Additionally, it doesn't have a lot of penetration against ground targets. Overall, it's probably one of the least usable AAs that actually has some kind of lead indicator. That's why it's at the lowest battle rating of any of the AAs that has a lead indicator. So fair to say I don't really care for the Vulcan all that much. But what about you? What do you think of the Chaparral? What do you think of the Vulcan? What do you think of the cute little thing where I used old DoD footage and audio for this video? If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, also let me know. I would appreciate any kind of input on the matter because obviously this is the first time I've done a video like this. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you liked it, hope you learned something. If you did, please subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody.